So this week's Mrs. Diets Bites is a massive shout out to Covenant in 9S, who shared with me her African fried rice recipe. I have never been successful at doing fried roast, let alone doing the fried chicken as well. So been really cool to see how she does it. She has shared videos and explained to me how to do it. So I'm hoping I do this recipe justice. But first of all, let's find out what you need. Off we go. So starting the chicken off, what we're going to do essentially is we're going to boil our chicken thighs. Okay, so these are going to go into the pan and we're going to boil them with some water. But what we want to do is to make sure we've got some flavours in there to help flavour the chicken first. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a tablespoon of oil to our pan. And we're going to add, now what I want to do is dissolve my stock cubes, but if I dissolve my stock cubes in the whole 500ml, I need to use all of the 500ml. I don't know if I'm going to need to use all the 500ml yet. So to be sure that I have enough water and enough flavour, I'm going to put my stock cubes into a small amount of water in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a small amount of water in here. Okay, this is already pre-boiled, so this is already warm in there. I'm going to turn on my heat. Okay, so that seems like quite a lot of stock, but 2 of those are vegetable stocks and 2 of them are chicken stocks. Now, with the stock, wooden spoon. Now with the stock is, I'm using chicken stock and vegetable stock, but actually Maggi stock, which are little orange, little yellow cubes. I couldn't find any in Morrison's and Asda, but those stock cubes, they've got slightly more spice in them. So if you do like this as a slightly hotter dish with, and it's not even just hot spice, it's got just slightly more tasty, slightly more interesting spices than the standard sort of vegetable spice that you get, but it does the same thing. So you can see now I've sort of made really quite a thick gravy, so I'll just give you a better view of that. So you can see I've made quite a thick gravy. I'm going to water that right down in a second. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add in my onions. And I'm going to add in my chopped garlic. I've just chopped up this garlic rather than crushing it. I'm going to stir that around again. And then I'm going to place in my chicken. I haven't got that big a pan. I wish I had a slightly larger one, if I'm honest. See if I can get these in. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's my 6. Okay, so they're all tucked in quite tight. And now what I want to do is bring my water in. I want the water just to cover the chicken. We don't want it to drown it, particularly. And just one final bit to add. I'm going to add my tablespoon of curry. Okay, just one final bit to add. I'm just going to add in a tablespoon of coriander as well, just to give it a little bit more flavour there too. You could add in maybe a little bit of curry powder as well into this if you wanted to. If you want to give it a little bit of spice, especially if you're using vegetable stock cubes, that will give it a little bit more flavour too. But essentially what's going to happen is while this chicken is stewing in this water, the chicken's going to take up all of that flavour, and that's what we want to do before we fry it. Okay, so that's what we're aiming for. I'm just going to add a tiny bit more water in there. Okay, and you can see I've not used all the water, there's a bit left. I might even need a bit more water later, but we'll see how we do. Okay. Okay. So I've got my vegetables ready, all chopped into fine little pieces because we are doing a rice and bits essentially. So your rice is quite small, you want to be able to get lots of different pieces of veg on your fork at once, so you want to keep things really quite small when you make this sort of dish. Alright, so I've chopped everything up really nice and small, dicing it as small as I can. I've shown all of those skills in other videos in the past, particularly the paella one if you want to have a look at the paella. So that's all of those cut. What I haven't shown you is how to do chilies. Now there's a couple of tips with chilies. First thing, they are hot, okay? If you're touching a chili, do not then touch your face, especially near your eyes, it will sting. This is a Scotch bonnet chili, which is the one that's on the recipe. It's a lot more crinkly and it's a lot hotter, okay? So that's a really sort of quite hot chili. I won't be using this one, but I thought you'd better be able to see what one's like. I'm going to use a slightly milder sort of standard chili. Now if you keep the chili all together like that, if I just chop that chili up like I would a carrot, for example, keep all the seeds and all the pith there, that's going to keep all of that hotness. Now, as I've said before in some of these videos, my daughter's not very good with hot food, so I've got to try and make this slightly milder, but I want still to have some of that nice chili sort of taste coming through. So I'm using a milder chili, and to be sure not to, let's see if I can cut this away around that you can see. First thing we want to do is cut from the top, and you want to slice all the way down to the end, okay? Right, so slice your chili in half. Now the key thing that keeps the heat in this is where all of this pith is, where all the white is. That's all the hotter bit. So what we're going to do is make sure we remove all of that and scrape all of that out. Okay, so just bringing my knife round and scraping along that way. Okay, you can use your fingers if you want to, but remember, don't touch your face afterwards. I assure you it is hot and it will sting. But actually a top tip that I found that does work really quite well is again our teaspoon trick. Okay, so using a teaspoon, it's quite soft flesh, so generally what you can do is you can break in across the top there and use that then to scrape down the chili and scrape all of those pieces out. Okay, now be very careful because it will spit and splatter slightly as you do that, because you're scraping away at that lovely soft skin. Alright, but that will enable you just to scoop out and get most of those pieces out the way. Okay, so with the pips removed, these are a lot milder, and I should get more that sort of, not sweet particularly, but I'll get the chili taste without so much of the heat. Alright, and then I'm just going to cut these a bit like I did with the peppers. So I'm going to place both halves on top of each other. And if you are a chili family and you like hot chili foods, go for it. Add the Scotch bonnet. Right, okay, so this is the bit that I've never done before and probably the most nervous about. So I've had lots of numerous advice from lots of people, but I'm going Covenant's way because she showed me in a video and it sort of made sense. The only thing is, Covenant has her own air fryer, so she has her own fryer for her chicken. So if you have a fryer, it's much easier. All you want to do is take the chicken out of the water as I'm doing now, and you can pretty much put that straight into the fryer. If you've got a deep fat fryer, you could try that. I've never really done deep fat fryer, and I don't particularly like that kind of amount of oil. So I'm just going to take these out. I need to get rid of some of the liquid on these because at the moment they've been boiling in water, and water and fat don't mix. So I'm just bringing them out onto my chopping board at the side here, which hopefully you can see at the moment. Okay. Right, so then on the back here I have some oil, and I've not started to heat this yet because it will spit really badly as I put these in. So I'm going to put these in very gently now. So they're still warm anyway. Okay, so you can hear that sizzling. Okay, and that's because they're warm and they're warming up the oil as we go in there. But essentially, the water and the fat will create fire if I'm not careful. So what I'm going to do is I've literally just turned the heat on underneath. I'm going to turn my heat right down, and I'm going to very slowly fry those off in there. Okay. It's a very slow frying. But the next key thing is I'm going to add the rice into this water so it cooks in all that chicken flavouring, essentially. You do need to wash your rice first, so I'm just going to quickly rinse my rice and then I will add it in. Right, okay, so I've washed my rice off and I'm just going to add this into the water. And that should soak most of that up a little bit like risotto would. Just turn that heat up a little bit. Okay, and while those two are now cooking, I can start to continue with my chopping of my vegetables. I'm just going to turn this chicken over now, it's starting to heat up. Okay, I'm going to grab a lid for that. Right, so I've finished chopping up all my vegetables. My rice has been boiling now for a couple of minutes. The chicken is frying in the pan there. And now I just want to soften up my carrots and my peas so they're ready to go in with my rice. So I'm going to place, I've got a pan of water, it's just come up to boil here. Now you can put root vegetables in water that's not boiling. So I'm going to put my carrots in to start off with. Okay, so root vegetables with water that's not already boiling, and if it's a vegetable that's not a root vegetable, so it doesn't grow underground, then that should have water already boiling before you add it to the water. So I've added my carrots in, I'm going to let that come up to boil, and then when that's boiling I'm going to add in the peas, and I will then turn that down to simmer, and I'll give them probably about 4 or 5 minutes in there, and then strain those off. Okay. Right, so my carrots are just starting to come up to boil, so I can add my peas in with my carrots. Okay, but while I've been waiting for those to come to boil, I've just noticed that my rice is starting to stick to the bottom of the pan, and I think, to be honest, I probably started with too little water, so I've boiled up some more water, and I'm going to add in some more water in with my rice. I'm essentially now boiling my rice rather than anything else, but I'm going to add a little bit more flavour to this. So this is to help with the fried rice flavouring. So I'm going to add in a teaspoon of curry powder and some salt. So I'm just going to add in a couple of twists of the salt. A teaspoon of curry powder. So it came out as half a teaspoon, so I added a little bit more. And stir all that in to give us a bit more flavour to that rice. Okay, so that's better. I can feel like that rice is now sort of coming off the bottom of the pan, which is good. Alright, you do need to watch that because we don't want this to become sticky and mushy, all stuck together. And I'm going to strain and wash this off in a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to turn my chicken over. Oh, I can smell that frying now. There we go. Now I'm told there are lots of other tricks to how to fry chicken, so like that, so it'd be really interesting for any feedback from anybody else who has any other tricks of how to do that, and how to get that really crispy coating on the outside of chicken. I don't have a lot of kitchen gadgets, so I'm left with doing it with just a pan and some oil. Right, so you need to try your rice, okay, to check whether it's ready, because what you don't want it to be doing is you don't want it to get to that stage, like I said, that it's a mushy stage, but you also don't want it so that it's still really crunchy. Okay, so I'm just been trying my rice to see if it's got to that sort of stage. That's what they call al dente, I suppose. Still very slightly crispy, but not so hard that I'm breaking my teeth on it. And that's just about right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this rice from this pan. Believe it or not, I'm actually going to wash it off a little as well, so that I'm removing some of the liquid. I'm going to strain off my carrots and peas because they're now ready, and then I'm going to be ready to fry all my vegetables in with my rice. Okay. So frying the rice, I've now strained my rice. Okay, so I've strained and tried to get rid of some of the excess water from that rice. My peas and carrots are ready, but I'm going to start off by frying my onions in the pan, and that's with my bit of chilli as well. So my onions are going to go in. I've already got some oil in this pan, and I'm going to place my chilli in as well. I'm going to do a little bit of a vegetable stock cube. Okay. I use my wooden spatula which should fry those off a little bit. This is the bit I'm most nervous about because I'm very good at doing fried rice, to be fair, and I think my rice looks a little bit stodgy already. So as I said, if anybody's got any other top tips out there to help me get this bit right, I'd be really pleased. I feel like I might have the chicken sussed. I'm quite pleased with how that's looking. I'm really chuffed with that one, so thanks for that one, Covenant. That's a really good top tip. But let's see how I do with this rice. Right, so the onions are just starting to go a little bit clear in colour. Okay, so where they're starting to go a bit clear, I know they're starting to soften up. So I'm going to add in my peppers. You could add some chilli flakes as well at this point if you want to mix up that sort of chilli flavouring. But the really nice thing about this dish is that actually I'm going to get a very slight chilli flavour through with that really nice chicken stock flavour. Look at those colours. That's part of the thing with having different coloured peppers. You can get some real colours into your cooking. Looks really, so much more fun, so much nicer when it's colourful. Right, so got all those lovely colours with peppers, onions, chillies in there at the moment. I'm now going to add in my carrots and peas. And you can see I now have a very full frying pan. This is why I'm going to get really nervous, because I've got to add the rice in a second and try and mix that in too. Let's see how we do. Now, what I might do, if this is too much for me to get the rice in as well, which I think it is going to be, I might divide half this off and do it sort of half at a time. You can see I'm coming all out of the pan here. Sometimes we just have to be creative with the equipment we have. Let's start off with a well for my rice and we'll see how we go. Right, so I have a well for the rice. I'm going to bring this into the centre. I'm going to bring it in a bit at a time and keep stirring it in as I go. Ah, this is coming together. Woo! Feel alright. Okay. So another bit of space. I'll pop in a bit more rice. Who says my pan's not big enough? I do. More rice because I've still got more to go in. Now I keep stirring. You see what I'm doing to try and stop it from falling out of the pan? I'm trying to bring all my stirring into the centre of the pan and then slowly pushing out. Okay? You sort of chop into it. And I say it is going to burn a little bit to the bottom of the pan, but hopefully you've got enough oil there. But that's not a bad thing. Actually, fried rice should have a little bit of that burnt texture to it here and there. That's what gives it that fried rice taste. The nice thing is actually it's the vegetables that are helping break up my rice, which is where I was saying to you normally what happens to me is I end up with a fried rice stodgy mess. But actually, because there's so many vegetables in this, it is, oh look, there's a chunk of vegetables I haven't mixed in properly there. But there's so many vegetables in this that actually they're helping to break up my rice and stopping it from all sticking together. I'm actually really quite pleased with that. In fear of over stirring it now, because I can see my rice is starting to get a little bit fluffy. I'm going to turn it right down on the heat and I'm literally going to leave it there for the amount of time it takes me to get the plates out and start serving up. Okay, so there, as far as I'm concerned, is my fried rice. Right, so guys, I'm just about to serve up, but I thought just once, as this is coming up to one of my last recipes, that I might give you a sneaky glimpse of behind the scenes of Mrs. Dyke's kitchen. Because what I'm about to take you to as I clear up is this lovely clean side over here. Look at that. Yay! See? So I can do nice and clean. However, what you don't see is this side over here. That's my washing up. So I've got to wash all of that up afterwards.